I would have to support what Senator Nelson has said. As regrettable and reprehensible as the hacking of political parties is, I do think Senator Nelson has touched on really the larger issue, which really is the subject matter of this hearing, and that is what the real threats are. And it concerns me that that we really don't know what the deterrence ought to be, and I wonder at what level are conversations taking place within the administration or within the intelligence community about what is appropriate in terms of a response. You mentioned countering cyber with cyber is not necessarily the number one solution. Secretary Littré mentioned that we should impose costs, and perhaps after you answer, I can ask him to expound on that also.
Well, we have had many discussions in the White House Situation Room at Deputies Committee, Principals Committee, and NSC meetings about what to do when we have these attacks. I think the Sony attack by the North Koreans is a case in point. And there you get into the complexities of, if you launch a counter cyber attack, and you're, I have to be careful here, but you have to use some other nation's infrastructure in order to mount that attack. And well, that gets into, as I've learned, the complex legal issues involving international law. And so the judgment was to impose some other costs other than a direct cyber retaliation.
Did you recommend that the president's sanctions were his actions in response to the Russian hacking part of your recommendation, or did that come from someone else?
Well, that was, well, without going into internal decision making, I think that was, you know, was a consensus interagency view.
Secretary Littré, what about imposing cost? What did you mean by that?
Well, as part of an approach that to deterrence that takes each case as it comes up, case by case, we need to look at ways to respond, first deter and then respond to attacks at a time and a place of our choosing that favors advantages that we have as we use all of the instruments available. So we look to deny objectives and then impose costs, as you indicated, Senator. Imposing costs really can come from things like were announced last week with the sanctions that were applied in the case of the Russian hacking situation. But they can go more broadly than that. From the military's perspective, we're concerned not just about Russia's cyber hacking, but also about a range of aggressive actions by Russia across multiple regions of the globe. And so we look to impose costs on Russia by a range of measures across multiple regions in partnership with our allies through NATO, where we can, to push back on Russian actions and deter future aggressive actions. So that's a bit of what we mean by imposing costs here.
Thank you.